Hello everyone. So today I was actually setting up a new site for one of my project, and I thought I will also share with you how to set up a site on GitLab. Now, using GitLab, you can actually host a site for free. The site has to be static site, and when I say static, you can have of course HTML, but you can also have JavaScript and CSS. Now, I already host a few sites on GitLab. For example, if I go to ravisagar.com, which is basically a site, a plain HTML site with absolutely no other tool publishing to it. It is nothing but a simple HTML file. That is it. And of course, a bit of CSS, HTML here and there. And of course, JavaScript. But apart from ravisagar.com, I also have ravi.pro. So basically, this site is something which is again HTML, but I use org mode to publish. Now, today I was setting up a site and I thought I'll probably also show you how to do it. The very first thing that you need to do if you're using GitLab, and by the way, there are, I think, more than one way of doing there is more than one way of doing it, but what I normally do is I create a group. So just go to groups and then you can create a group. I think creating a group is always helpful. For example, in my case, I have one group for every site, and the reason I do it is because in future I may need to have, let us say, a subdomain. I can maybe put those subdomains, or I should say individual repositories under these groups if needed. So always start with a group if you can. And whenever I do something like any work, I always think about the future, what I may need to do. So the first thing is create a group. And when you create a group, you can of course, just create a group with a name, and you can give your group any name, and it will of course, this is a group, right? And it will also ask you to set the visibility. So just set it to private, right? You don't have to do it. I mean, it can be public, but if you're setting up a website, then your own website, keep it private. And then of course, role, whatever you want to select. And then of course, you can create the group. So once you create the group, you will then of course be able to add repositories under it. So let me show you one of the group which I just created, and the group name is called as Jira Training. I have one repository under it, which is something that of course will do now. And by the way, if you go to the settings and then general, you can change things like group name, and maybe you can, or you may want to change something like permissions. You can do that later on. The next thing is that you have to create a repository or a project. So this is something that I already have. So to do it, you can click on the new project, and you will get the option to create a project using a template, or you can import from other repositories, but we'll create a new one, a blank one. And when you do it, you don't have to do basically, there's not much happening here. I'll probably show you the one that I already have. The main thing is that you can, this is my project. So the main thing is that you need to have this project under a group, the one that you just created. Now, what I do normally, and this is based on my experience using GitLab, if you are planning to create a website that you want to host on GitLab, then I have a recommendation for the project name, and I think that recommendation is not really a recommendation. I think it is a requirement. So what you can do is, I'll probably open one of my project under a group. So your group name can be anything, and the project name, the project that you want to have within that particular group, I believe it should have this particular format. Basically, the project name, project name is something that will also generate the URL of that particular project. But use something like this, like for example, my domain is, if I give this name, jiratraining.gitlab.io, then I should be able to access this particular URL later on. So this is something that I can do. This is of course live right now, and just use this name, include .gitlab.io. So whatever project you want to name, then .gitlab.io. And the main thing that you have to do is this one. If you want to convert it to, or if you want this to basically become a page. And that thing is basically if you go to this option called pages, so you have to basically go to your repositories or project settings and then go to general, and then the very first option, the very first group here is called visibility, project features, permissions. Expand it, and then your project can be private, but you can actually use this option here called pages, and then make sure it is enabled and it is set to everyone, not just the project members. And of course you can then save the changes. So this is something that you can do, and you will then of course have this URL. Now this URL is something that of course will resolve to this particular repository. If you have, let us say, index.html, which I have. So if I show you my index.html, it is nothing but this, I'm just starting to work on this. So I just added few things here. So nothing much, but some text, and of course need to, include or make sure I have something which is looking good properly. So I'll probably, use something like maybe this is my P for paragraph, of course. I hope you know what P is. So, and maybe I'll have this header on top. And of course, I'll not be using this online editor. I'll be using Emacs for welcome to Jira .training, and you can of course commit it. And when you commit, you can just commit directly to the main branch, and or you can of course merge it if you want. But once you commit, it will actually also deploy the site. And for deployment, what you need to do, you need to set up this file called .gitlab-ci.yml, and you don't have to basically write it manually. I mean, it's nothing but few lines of code. And what I did is I basically used this template called I believe there's something called HTML. So if you use this template, it will basically give you these options. I mean, you can of course select it, and right now I'll probably not commit this because I already have this. How do I undo? Okay, so there is an undo button. So it is basically going to do few things which I already have configured, by the way. So the main thing is that it will look for the branch name, which you can specify here. And in the template, I think it was the variable name. But so you can basically use the template for HTML. And that is it. So once you do this, it will of course do some deployments for you. And if you look at let us look at the CI/CD pipelines and take a look at these deployments. I think there is a limit to the deployment, but of course, if it is a personal site, I don't really think you will be doing it every day, 5 times a day, or maybe 50 times a day. So this is something that you can of course do. And if I go back to my site, now it says welcome to Jira Training, and it looks really good. I quite like this. And my idea here is that because I have this domain and I want to use this domain to basically promote my videos, my courses, and I will be keeping it simple because I don't really think I need to set up a Drupal site for this. The whole idea here is to keep things simple using this simple HTML file, which is nothing but my website. And I will of course have links to various other places so people can click on those links. But this would be more like a landing page or a simple one-page website. I might of course do something later on, but for the time being I just want, because I had this domain, and there was a site, by the way, but that site was hosted previously on a server which I discontinued, and I wanted to actually build a new site, so I thought I'll probably do it on GitLab. But in this video, I basically wanted to share how you can configure a site. Now, one more thing. This is of course using this URL, jiratraining.gitlab.io. But what you can also do is you can also use your domain control panel, and you can actually configure your CNAME to point to this particular URL. So not a record, but you have to configure, you have to create two CNAMEs, one for let us say main domain name.com, or the other one could be for www.domainname.com, and point it to this particular URL that you will get from GitLab based on, of course, your project name. And that is it. So you can then, of course, open that domain name. For example, mine is, of course, ravisagar.com, and it works wonderfully well. So that is all I wanted to talk about today in this video. I hope you enjoyed watching this video and you learned something new. Thank you very much.